I'm Sofia Bernardi, mindset and business coach supporting ambitious new and rising coaches plus service-based businesses to master their mindset, create an aligned and profitable strategy, and grow a six-figure business using the Rising Coach method. I built a multi-six-figure business by the age of 24, and in this podcast, I will teach you the psychology, strategy, and energetics to do the same. Let's dive in. Hello, and welcome to Rising Coaches with Sofia Bernardi. I am so excited because today I'm going to be sharing with you guys my signature goal setting process. For context, I have been setting goals ever since I was 12 years old. I have tried every single process under the sun on how to set goals. I've gone through processes where I was setting like 50 goals a year. I would set like 5 goals per different category. I've tried 10 goals. I've tried, a goal for each area of my life. I've tried so many things. And I have really cracked the code on what works, at least for me, of course. But every time I teach this process, I am reminded how unique it is in comparison to other processes. And so I thought, why don't I share it with you guys? Because this is my favorite place to dive really, really deep. It's where I can be myself. It's where I can open up. It's where I can share the most value possible because I'm able to express myself through words and depth and detail. There's no time limit or character limit. So I'm really excited to be sharing this with you because I ran a workshop a couple of weeks ago and I shared this process, and I sometimes just, forget how powerful it is. And so many people were absolutely mind blown by the concept as they've never tried anything like this before. So I was like, right, need to bring this onto the podcast. So here we go. Now, this process is quite in depth, but that's the point. It's important for it to be very detailed so that it's not just something you write down on a piece of paper and then never look at again or never take action towards. This is how you actually execute on your goals and bring your vision and mission to life. This is a process I've been using for 3 years now, ever since I started my business. And like I said, I've been goal setting for as long as I can remember, and I've always just tweaked and iterated every single year, but I haven't had to make any changes the last 3 years because it's been that powerful. Now, goal setting is so important, and I shouldn't even need to go into detail about why that is before we get started on the how-to of this, but it is really important to read your goals out loud. I say my goals out loud every single day, and I'm always looking at them. I have them front of mind, and I base all of the decisions I make off my goals. I'm also a big believer in less being more, and I'll get into that in a second. And I'm also a big believer in being really specific. So if you care about your vision coming to life and creating your dream life with whatever area that is, you can use this for any area of your life, then I encourage you to take a lot of notes from this episode. You might need to save this if you're driving. You might need to watch it later. Or if you are in a position, get your notes out and ready to write things down of the process of this, I suppose, because it's really, really powerful. And I encourage you to make a date with yourself to actually do this. It's going to take a little while, but it will be so worth it because you will have goals that you can tangibly and actionably take action towards in your life, right? And that's how you're going to get results. It's only going to work if you take aligned action, and this process teaches you how to do exactly that. So firstly, step 1 is getting clear on your overall mission. So don't worry about goals at all right now. I just want you to imagine that we are sitting together and the date is, whatever the date is today, but in 12 months' time, the following year, right? And I want you to look back at the year you've just had. What would you like to say you've achieved? And think of topics such as wealth, and or career, health, and relationships. And the trick here is to be really specific and let your mind go wild. So there's no too broad or too long an answer. Just trust the first things that come to mind and let that expand. So you really want an opportunity to be able to journal here. And you might write pages and pages, and that's perfectly fine. Or you might just write 1 page. But I want you to get really, really clear on what would your life look like if your entire vision came to life?
what would your health look like? What would your financial situation look like? What would your relationships look like? What would your body look like? How would you feel? Where would you be living? What would you be doing? Be really, really specific and just let yourself dream here. Don't feel like, oh, but that's not realistic, so I'm not going to do that. Just allow whatever comes to mind to truly come to mind. Now, the reason why getting clear on your vision is step one is because we really want there to be intentionality behind your goals. Like, why are you writing the goal that you're writing? Is it just because everyone else writes that goal? Or is it because it's part of your dream life and you don't currently have that? So getting clear on the vision helps people to be able to come up with their goals, right? So once you've done that, make a whole ritual out of it. Put nice music on, everything like that. This is supposed to be a really, really fun exercise. And you'll probably come up with the fact that there are lots of things that are coming up. And this is where this gets a lot of fun. Now, I am a big believer in setting very few goals. I've tried every approach. I've tried setting, 50 goals, 30 goals, 10 goals, even 5 goals. And what I have found is the more goals that you set, the more energy you have that you need to divide into all of those things, and the less likely you are going to be able to achieve and prioritize them all. So I'm a big believer in setting max 3 goals, right? 1 wealth goal, which is also known as, your business or investments or savings or career, anything like that. And then a health goal, which, can be mindset, wellness, fitness, energy, and then a relationships goal. And that could be with yourself, a romantic relationship, friends, family, and clients, right? So we want to set maximum 3 goals. If you feel like you have 2 really, really big goals, or maybe even only 1 goal, that's perfectly fine as well. But if you want to do one for the 3 core areas of your life, that is fine. For some people, they might have 1 goal that is so big that it actually encompasses many areas of your life, in which case that is fine. But maximum 3 goals, I would say. And that is just because your energy is everything. And if you have too many things, it's going to be really hard to know what and when to prioritize. And then as soon as you start to have way more goals than that, it starts to become not as important. They become smaller goals. And I'm really big on setting extremely big goals. Okay, so we want to set really big goals so that in order to achieve that, it supports us in many areas of our life. So for example, I remember a couple of years ago, my goal was to run a marathon. And that to me personally was a huge goal. And the reason why I set that as one of my 2 goals for that year, I think the other one would have been to make $10,000 per month in my business. But the reason why the marathon was such a big goal for me and why I chose it was because in order for me to run a marathon, I had to change my sleeping habits, my eating habits, my routine. I had to change, who I hung out with because, going out and drinking every weekend would not serve my goal of running a marathon. I had to, so all of a sudden, I had this 1 goal, but my friendship group was different, my eating was different, my exercise was different, my routine was different, my sleep was different, my priorities were different, everything changed. I started saving money because I wasn't going out more, etc., etc., etc. I, went to the gym more and surrounded myself with different people. Can you see how 1 goal had such a flow-on effect? It affected the relationships, it affected my health, it affected my relationship with myself, it affected my finances, right? It changed so much. And that's a beautiful thing because that allows me to set 1 goal that I know is going to support many areas of my life. So that's why anywhere between 1 and 3 goals. I'm being quite generous saying 3 so that you can focus on the 3 core areas of your life if your goal isn't big enough to cover, 2, for example. Okay, so step 1 is getting really, really clear on the vision, let yourself dream and go wild. And then step 2 from there is to write, let's just say 3 1-year goals from that vision. So when you look at the vision, what goal would you need to set to bring that entire vision to life, right? So it might be, earning consistent $20,000 months in your business, or It might be getting into a passionate, intimate relationship. It might be running a marathon. It might be starting a business. It could be anything. It could be, up leveling in your current career path. There are so many things. It could be buying your first home. It could be investing a certain amount of money into shares. There's so many things it could be. But how I want you to write this is I want you to make sure that you set them as SMART goals. So many goal setting processes just teach you the SMART method, which is an acronym that stands for specific, measurable, achievable, relevant, and time bound. But that alone is just so not enough. So just know that we're going so much deeper than that. But I do see a lot of value in the SMART method, because if your goals aren't specific, then it's going to be really hard to know whether you achieve them or not. So for example, if you say you want to earn more money, I could give you $1 and you've earned more money. But I'm sure when you said more money, you were thinking of a lot more than $1, right? If you want to get healthier, what the heck does that even mean? What does that look like, right? Do you see what I mean? You want to be really, really specific. So with specific, you want to be clear and concise. Then we want it to be measurable. Again, how can we know if we are moving towards it if it's not measurable, right? So it's, for example, by saying, I want to be healthier, how can you measure whether you're healthier or not? And I'm not saying you can't measure it, but you need to know, how would you measure that? And that's why being specific is really important. So let's say your goal is to get to $10,000 per month in your business. You're either moving towards that figure or you're not. And you will know whether you're moving forwards. You're either, moving towards $10,000 or you're staying right where you are. Or maybe you're spending more than you're even making, right? And so it needs to be measurable so you can track your progress. Then it needs to be achievable. Now, I want to take the time to explain what I mean by this, because a lot of people misunderstand this. When I say achievable, I'm all about setting really, really big, impossible goals, like goals that feel so big, because the whole point of goal setting is actually not necessarily achieving the goal, but who you become. And so it's about stretching yourself and growing and evolving. And the way to do that is by setting goals that feel extremely far away. If it's truly close by, it doesn't require you to stretch, and then you're not driven to move towards it. Or if you are, it's not as fulfilling because nothing actually within you changes that much. So when I say achievable, I'm not saying it needs to be realistic in the sense that it's super close by and easy. I mean achievable as in it's realistic yet courageous. So for example, let's say my goal was I want to have $1 million by tomorrow. Now, I'm not saying that's impossible, but it would require doing some pretty illegal shit probably with where I'm currently at. Like if I really am honest with myself with where I'm at right now, I don't know it's possible for me to get $1 million by tomorrow. That's not very realistic. That puts a lot of pressure on myself. That gets me into scarcity mode. And that's just crazy, to be honest. So you want to be realistic in the sense that it's possible, obviously, but also, it does stretch you. And so this is, a lot of people get confused by the whole it being realistic and then being big and bold. Go to the big and bold side, but just ask yourself, is this something that is actually genuinely a priority for you this year? Is it realistic with the circumstances going on in your life? So for example, let's say you want to buy a house, but you know your current annual wage and you don't have any savings yet for the deposit, and you just, once you've done the calculations, you know that it's really going to mean that you can't do anything else for the entire year, for example, or you're going on holiday as well and you're doing this other thing and this other thing, and so the timing doesn't quite match up in the sense that you can't allocate money towards all of those things with your current financial situation, for example. It's not really the best example, but I hope you understand what I'm meaning. Really look at, is this a priority for this year? Is it possible and realistic for your current circumstances? If you're going to be changing your circumstances, by all means, but that's just really the thing to consider. So for example, maybe if you wanted to run a marathon, but you're also, planning on having a baby this year? Like, do those two things line up? Like, is that something you want to even do, right? Because if you don't, one of the goals you will not move towards, right? So that's the only thing to really consider there. Other than that, you want it to be extremely bold. These are 12-month goals we're setting, by the way. Now,
are you ready to create aligned, scalable results in your coaching or service-based business? If so, I'd love to work with you. I support my clients through my signature programs, Rise to Coach, which is for new coaches or service providers wanting to sign their first clients, and Rise to 6 to scale to consistent 10K months. DM me at Sofia Rose Bernardi on Instagram to learn more and see if one of my programs is the right fit for you.
Now, you want it to be relevant. So you want it to be a goal that is relevant to your vision, to your values and ambitions, right? So many people set goals because they feel like that's what they should write. So I want to make 100K in my business. Like, that's amazing, but why? Like, why? Is it because that's what other people's dream is in their business, or is it because you actually want that? And if so, why? Does it align with your values, with your vision, your goals, everything like that? And so then the final thing is that it needs to be time bound. So there needs to be a target date for completion. Now, this is really, really important, because if you don't know when you want to achieve this by, you don't have a time frame, and then there's no urgency whatsoever. So based on your vision, what is a goal for each area that you would like to achieve within the next 12 months? It needs to be specific, measurable, achievable, relevant, and time bound. Beautiful. So once you have your 12-month goals, then what we want to do is break them down into 6-month goals so that we can see exactly what needs to happen to bring your vision to life and achieve those goals. So you might just halve the goals, or based on what goals they are, you would know where you'd be roughly in 6 months' time. And the reason why we start to break this down is so it becomes a lot more close to home, because right now, if your goals are big and bold, they would probably feel quite far away, and we want them to feel a little bit closer so that we're not overwhelmed and we can take action on it. So we want to break them down into 6-month goals, and then we want to do the same to 3-month goals. So what would your goal need to be in 3 months' time in order to know that you are on track for your 6-month goal? And what would your 6-month goal need to be to know that you are on track for your 12-month goal? And this doesn't always go to plan, but just to be able to break down that really, really big goal to something that's a lot more closer is really, really good. So for example, sometimes with a financial goal is we think, I'm just going to divide it by 6 and then 3 and then 1 and whatever. But for example, last year in my business, most of my money I made in the second half of the year, because I'm not the same person all throughout the year. I am growing and evolving all of the time. So I'm not necessarily making the same amount every single month, and it can just be perfectly divided like that. As I grow and I get more experienced and more confident in all of the things, I start to quantum leap and jump and make way, way, way more money. So my earnings last year drastically changed in the second half. It wasn't even like I didn't make nearly as much money in the first half of the year as I did the second, because I just evolved so much. So at the beginning of last year, I was not on track for $1 million year at all, but on the second half of the year, I was, right? And it was a huge jump. And so you can split these goals into, 6-month goals, quarterly goals, monthly goals, but just know that it'll probably evolve and not look as straightforward as you might think. But we just need to have a ballpark so we have something to aim towards. But just keep that in mind. So once you've broken it down into quarterly goals, we now want to break it down into what are you going to be focusing on this next 30 days that's going to help move you towards the quarterly goal. And then you can just set another goal the following month and then the following month to get to that quarter goal. So we break these 3 goals into 1-month goals so we can see exactly what needs to happen to bring your vision to life. So you write that down. Now, once you've broken it down all the way from 12-month goals all the way to a 1-month goal to focus on to move you towards the quarterly goal, then we want to look at, when we look at each individual goal, what actions are actually required to start. Here, you just want to brain dump on all of the tasks that you need to take in order to start and move towards your goals, right? So write all of the things. It doesn't matter if it's a page-long list, just write it down so we can start to get some momentum. Now, once you've written the actions that are required for each of your goals, then we start to head into the mindset side of things and insert that drive and that why. So the next question I have for you is, what actually feels really scary about these 3 goals? Let's own it. This is a beautiful opportunity to address those fears. And then you can do the mindset work depending on what your mindset practices are, or whoever your coach is. And if it's me, come to me because I love this stuff. We really want to own those fears and overcome those fears. Often our fears are very subconscious. 95% of human behavior is actually subconscious. And so we might need to do some deeper work, but by getting clear on the fears, it just means you're being honest with yourself and real with yourself. And you can make the necessary changes to ensure that you're going to have a much easier time moving towards your goals. Now, the next question is something I really, really love. And we're nearly finished, guys, by the way. And that is, who is the person you need to become to rise and bring these goals to reality? So we've looked at the actions we need to take and what we need to do and what we want, but who do you actually need to be? Who do you actually need to become in order to achieve these goals? That's my favorite freaking question on the planet. It's so powerful. Who do you need to be? So often, and in particular with goal setting, because that's how it's taught, people focus on what it is they need to do to reach the goal. And yes, that's important, but without addressing the fears and doubts, without knowing who you actually need to be more so than what you need to do, it's going to be really hard to show up as that person you're trying to become if you're not clear on that, right? You're going to be taking action from the person you are now, not who you want to be. And so to change that, we need to get clear on who is that person. And as we're writing and journaling on that, we are committing, we are deciding. So many people get really caught up in the mindset space of things that all of this magical, intense, deep stuff needs to happen in order for things to change. And whilst there is absolutely a time and place for that, often you just need to decide something different. And deciding is not half in, half out. It's fully in. You will trust yourself if you are in alignment and congruent with what you say you're going to do. Make commitments and follow through. That builds trust and self-worth. So, who is the person you need to become to rise and bring these goals into reality? And then the last thing that you need to do to complete this goal setting process that works and makes you take so much action is listing reasons why achieving each goal is an absolute must for you. I'm going to be fully transparent here. I once wrote 200 reasons for one goal because the more pain and pleasure you have linked to your goals, the better. So I wrote, 100 consequences of what would happen if I didn't achieve this goal. And I wrote 100 amazing things that would happen if I did achieve this goal. And it took me a while and it was hard, but you just got to keep writing. And I'm not saying you need to write 200, but you need to write enough until this just becomes an absolute must. This is no longer some shitty New Year's resolution or some goal that you're setting to just inspire yourself for the day or for the week, but something that you actually give a fuck about and you want to have in your life, you desire, right? And the way you anchor into that desire is by getting clear on your why. Because then you're not reliant on motivation and feeling like it, because motivation is designed to come and go, right? It's not there 24/7 for anyone, but what is there is drive. If you can anchor into drive, you are going to set yourself apart from everyone else that sets goals, right? Most people rely on motivation and most people don't reach their goals. It's very hard to find people that are truly driven. You need to create that from within. That is an internal thing. And the more reasons you have why, the more drive you have. So write as many reasons. That might be 10, that might be 20 or 50 or 100 or 200 or even 300. But write down your reasons why so that this becomes a must. It's not a maybe, it's not a I hope, it's not one day, it's a must. And there you have it. You're clear on your vision, right? You've set your 12-month goals. You've broken them down into 6-month goals and 3-month goals and your first 1-month goal. and then you've addressed the fears, you've addressed who you need to become, you've written down the actions that you need to start, and you've gotten clear on your why. And then all that's left to do is to take massive fucking action towards them and never give up. And so the best thing to do is look at the actions that you said are required for each goal. Tick the first thing off the list today. If that's running a marathon, book in the marathon right now. Just do it. Whatever it is, book it in, start it, action it, write it down, do it, call someone, tell someone, do this, do that. Just start. Because starting is the hardest part, and you will lose that momentum if you don't begin this. Put yourself out there. Whenever I'm running a workshop or something like that in my business, I always share it on my stories before I've actually created too much of it, because that's the way I'm going to follow through. I'm so much more likely to take action when I've told other people, and when I've declared it out to the world. That's why I very courageously share my goals on my podcast every year. That's uncomfortable and that's scary to do, because there's all the what ifs. What if I don't achieve it? What if I get nowhere near it? What if I change my mind? What if this? What if that? But you've got to own it and you've got to move towards it. And you might evolve and it might not be relevant anymore, but also it's important to you right now. So trust that and honor that and take action. So once you've done all that, put all your tasks in your project management tool. I personally use Asana in my business. You can use whatever platform or process you want, but put it somewhere now where you're going to see these actions and you're going to see these goals. Write your goals down, journal on them, have them there front of mind for you to look at. Every single month with my mastermind clients, we do a monthly planning session where we review, the month we've just had in correlation to the goals we've set, and then we plan for the month ahead. So every single month I am getting clear with my clients on their goals, so that it's always front of mind and every decision we make is in alignment with our vision, mission, and goals. That is everything, guys. I hope that has helped you and you wrote all of that down. Felt so fun to share with you my process, because something I'm really proud of. I almost studied goal setting, it felt like, as a young adult, and this process has really served me. So come let me know what your big ambitious 12-month goals are. It doesn't matter if you're listening to this years from in the future, just send me a message. I would love to hear your goals. I'm obsessed with goal setting and other people's goals and holding them to those goals. So you can message me at Sofia Rose Bernardi on Instagram. All of the links would be in the show notes. And if you'd like to work with me, you can book a free clarity call with me and we can see what that would look like. But thank you so much for listening, and I'll see you next week. All my love.
Are you ready to create aligned, scalable results in your coaching or service-based business? If so, I'd love to work with you. I support my clients through my signature programs, Rise to Coach, which is for new coaches or service providers wanting to sign their first clients, and Rise to 6 to scale to consistent 10K months. DM me at Sofia Rose Bernardi on Instagram to learn more and see if one of my programs is the right fit for you.